Well, welcome back. This is a video that's going to finish up in-class lab 5 for you. All you have to do is kind of watch it, and I think you'll be able to complete it. This is the Fibonacci series. We've already gone over this much of it in class, and if you want to pause this and go ahead and create these, you can. But basically, you're going to have a counter variable that's going to drive the loop. That's going to be your loop control variable, because you're going to have a loop that's going to continue as long as there's not the number of digits they've asked for. So if they ask for a 5-digit series, it's going to loop and put 5 digits of the Fibonacci series in your output string. So in this program, it's kind of neat because I'm introducing you to not only looping, which we've covered in class, decisions and data validation, which we talked about, but also dynamic string creation, which you'll be doing quite a lot of in your programming career. And we've talked about the ampersand, which is a concatenation symbol that concatenates 2 strings into one, and then it may do another set of strings into that one, making one string. So you can start with an empty string if you want, or one character or whatever, and start appending things onto the end of it. And those things can be other strings. They can be control characters like new line feeds, things of that nature, tab characters, so that when the display device gets those ASCII characters tell the display device format this text in a certain way. And even though it looks like one long string, when you see it formatted and outputted, it's in the correct format that you had envisioned, hopefully. All right, so we got counter, num1, num2. Those are our 2 numbers in the Fibonacci series. We're going to use those to sort of this is almost like a swap number. We're kind of going to take num2 and make it num1, and then calculate num2, and then sort of move. That's what we're going to do with that. So the fib variable is what we actually put the calculated Fibonacci number in, and the NFS is the number of fibs in the set. We get that from the user. Okay, that tells us how many numbers they want, and then output string is what we're going to build dynamically, so we can display that set of fibs to the user based on what they gave us. This is simply our validation loop. It is if you look at it, this display is really bad. This is a post test, and you do that just by editing it. Post test while loop. That's my condition. If NFS is less than 1 or greater than 25, that means they've given us an invalid number, because we want it to be between 1 and 25. So if they've done that, then we just keep asking them for 1 until it's correct. Now, if it's between 1 and 25, this will be false, and it won't ever. It'll just get the value and go on through. So that's why I'm using a post-test loop. You can use a pre-test loop, but if you do, you have to have another input statement identical to this one right here. Now, I've got prompts in here, so don't forget this. Please enter the number of fibs in the set between 1 and 25. See, I've asked them right there. So if I keep popping that up in their face, they're going to keep seeing that in this input. And this is just your closing output. So our stuff's going in here. Let's go ahead and put, what did I ask for? I think a while loop. Is that right? So a while loop looks like a while loop. Let's see if it is. Yeah. And that's a pretest. And what's our condition going to be? Well, according to the documentation, counter less than NFS. All right. Now, we can go ahead and put, if we put our 3 calculations in there, we're never going to get the right result because of the fact that these first 2 numbers are already set to 0. So 0 plus 0 is 0. So I'm always going to have 0. So I've got to have some way to determine if they want 1 digit in the set, 2 digits in the set, or more. Once they go beyond 2, 1 and 2, or excuse me, 0 and 1, 2 digits, then our calculation is always going to work. So there's a little bit of an error in the way this is calculated. So we need to sort of account for that. So let's go ahead and put our fib calculation in here. Fib equals num1 plus num2. And you may have already played around with this enough to see what I'm talking about and had to do something different. Or not. That's okay. So if I keep going here, all I'm going to get is zeros because they're set to 0. They don't give me these. These have to be calculated. All they're giving me is the number of fibs that they want to see, 8, 25, whatever. So 0 plus 0 is always going to be 0. That's not going to work. So we're going to have to put a little bit of logic in here to determine if it's the first digit they're asking for, the second digit, or not. All right, now, this counter, this loop control variable is going to be a good way to do that, because what's the first value of the counter? 0. What's the second value of the counter? 1. Well, if the counter's 0, that means it's the first digit in the set. If it's 1, it means it's the second, and if it's greater than 1, then our formula works like a charm all the way to the end. So we can use that to set up a set of ifs. Pretty simple stuff, really, if you think about it. If you understand the problem, that's always it. Counter equals 0. Now, counter's what drives the loop, right? So it starts off at 0. We know that because we initialize at 0, and it goes up to something less than whatever the user gives us for NFS, which is always going to be 25 or less. So counter equals 0. If that's true, then we need to go ahead and set num2 to 1. Because we know that if we don't do that, we're always going to get 0. So we know that on the first pass, num2 should be 1. Now you might say, well, why don't you just go ahead and set 0 and 1 up here? Well, yeah, you could do that. But then I wouldn't have the pleasure of having you throw this extra logic in here. And I know that you really appreciated that. All right, so now what do we got to do? Well, we got to put something in our output string. Because that's the whole point of this, is to build that output string and put those fibs in there, right? Well, so what's the first fib going to always be? The first Fibonacci is always 0, right? Well, we're on the first Fibonacci because we're at the counter's at 0, so we can just do output string. That's uppercase, that's my fault. Whoops. Equals fib. Fib is 0, isn't it? Because num1 plus num1 at that point was 0. So, and there's nothing to be said about that, all right? Now, this is a post-test while loop. What do we have to do to keep this from being an infinite loop? We have to increment the counter. If you don't do that, you're going to be in trouble, right? So counter equals what? Counter plus 1. All right. Wouldn't be a bad idea to save your work right now. All right. So now, what if it's not 0? Well, it's 2 or 1 or higher, right? Well, we just need to test to see if it's 1 now. So that would be the second digit in the series. And again, num2 is going to have to be set to 1 for this to work out on the next pass. All right. But the output's going to be a little bit different. Because this is the second digit, isn't it? Well, this needs to be conditioned. Oh, counter equals 1. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Counter equals 1. We already set it for 0, tested it for 0. Num2 is still going to equal 1, but the output string's a little bit different. So because we already got something in there, don't we? Over here it was empty, so it didn't matter. We just said output string equals fib. But now we want to save what's in there and just add something else to it, right? So it's going to be output string. We already got something in there, don't we? So I have to put output string back in here, just like you did when on your project 3 when you're doing the desk. Remember that? Output string. Made a typo, didn't I? That's got to be uppercase. That will not give me a good result, will it? Output string equals output string what? Ampersand, because I'm taking that and joining it together. I'm going to put a comma and a space in there. Now, you figure this out after you run it and see what it looks like, and say, you know, now I need a space in between each one of these. I need a comma here, and I don't need one at the end. That's just faking your way through it. I mean, I've already been through this and did that, so that's why I know, hopefully, what to do. We'll see, won't we? All right. So output string equals output string. And the reason for that is if this is true, it put 1, 0. It just put a 0 in there. Come in here and increment the counter. So now counter is 1. Comes in here now, num1 plus num2 is what? 1, because we incremented that by 1. So now fib's going to be 1. Counter's going to be 1. So we come in here and output this. Come out here and do that. We might not even need that now that I think about it. But anyway. So now the counter is 2. That's false. That's false. And so it's always going to be, it's always going to wind up over here because you only care about the first 2 digits. So anything greater than 2 is going to be on the false side of this. So this is where our actual calculations go. Once we get here, everything should work. So I've got num1 equals num2, and all that's doing is just moving the number, from one digit to the next, because you got to do 0 plus 1, 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, 2 plus 3, 3 plus 2 and 5 and all that. So to generate that stuff, so you have to move your numbers. So num2, and if you look at the documentation, I've already given you this stuff. I'm not just throwing it out there. You've already seen it if you read it. So then we go num2 equals fib. Oh gosh, sorry, I'm used to actually writing in an actual compiler. Not that I don't like visual logic, but it does tend to do things weird. And this can be the same here. Always going to be the same. Okay. So that should get it. All right. Let's see what we got for our output. We already got that there. Output string. Make sure I got output string everywhere. I probably got an error somewhere. I'm sure I do. I seldom do something that's involved and not have an error. The Fibonacci series R. Output string. All right. Let's see what we get. Let's run it. I don't know how many I put. Let's put 5. I can't remember now. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, it worked. Hot dog. Of course, I was looking at a piece of paper too. My eyes aren't that great. Let's do another one. Let's do 25. There it is. Let's do -1. Oh, I got something wrong. I did something wrong. Oh, I put no wonder. 26. 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, so that's working. So it's validating our data. There's 3 digits in the set. Let's do 4. Should have put a loop within a loop. Asking to keep going. Let y'all play with that. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty cool. It works. Now, this is what we call a hack right here. Okay, we had to hack this so that our typical formula would work correctly. There are other ways to hack it. I could have started off with 1 up here and changed this and the counter and all that. I mean, that's fine. I just wanted you to see what I was doing. Once you get past 2 digits, then this is what's going to happen. That's the typical calculation, which I've given to you. And you need to understand what we're doing here. Every time, we started off with an empty string up here. So if it's the first counter equals 0, that's the first character. So I just set output string equals to fib. But every character after that, I have to append some stuff to it. So that's the dynamic string allocation. That's why we don't know how big that string is going to be until this thing completes. So all we're doing is sticking character on the end of it, character on the end of it, characters on the end of it. And that's it. So zoom out just a little bit here, see if you can see everything. Come on. I know that looks pretty bad. All right, well, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm going to say that you could leave this, pause the video, and go back and look at this if you wish. But thanks for watching. I hope it helps.